Hello and welcome to The Game, football podcast from The Times and Sunday Times. Honestly, who would be a manager, eh? Days after Ruben Amorim was sacked, interim boss Darren Fletcher watches Manchester United draw 2-2 at relegation-threatened Burnley. Will Ole Gunnar Solskjaer make a remarkable return to Old Trafford? Elsewhere, incoming Chelsea manager Liam Rosenior watches from the stands as his new side lose 2-1 at Fulham. Nuno Espirito Santo's job at West Ham gets even harder, and the pressure grows on Thomas Frank as Tottenham lose 3-2 in the last minute at Bournemouth. Bad time to be pictured holding an Arsenal Cup. Honestly, football's gone, isn't it? We should just pack it up. Anyway, on today's show, we'll also discuss the title race as Manchester City draw again, a thriller at St James's Park, red card chaos at Everton, and Brentford winning the battle of the upstarts to go fifth. I'm Tom Clark, and joining me today we have the chief correspondent for The Times and Sunday Times, Martin Samuel, the football correspondent for the Sunday Times, Johnny Northcroft, and the former footballer Gregor Robertson is here as usual. Johnny, I remember the last time you were on the show, end of 2025, we asked for our wishes for 2026, and you said, can everyone just calm down a bit?
Yeah.
Well, they didn't listen, did they, Johnny? Not a bit.
No, the football world is like my own house. No one listens to me.
We've all lost the plot. There is so much to cram into this show, but we have to start, I think, with the latest at Manchester United. A 2-2 draw, as I say, at Burnley last night, but far more significance off the pitch. We have a headline on the Times website currently as we record this on Thursday morning with a piece from Paul Hurst and Matt Lawton. Manchester United speak to Ole Gunnar Solskjaer over the interim role. Michael Carrick and Darren Fletcher also being considered. Another former Old Trafford favourite, Ruud van Nistelrooy, is thought to be out of the running. So, Martin, what a week it's been for Manchester United. As I say, off the pitch with that draw at Burnley as well, kind of summing up things for where they are. Your reaction to the last couple of days at Manchester United?
Well, if Ole Gunnar Solskjaer is the answer, what the hell is the question? I mean, we've seen Ole Gunnar Solskjaer as Manchester United manager. It didn't quite work, or it didn't really work. And just because they've managed to find a way that it could get worse doesn't really mean that you go back to Ole Gunnar Solskjaer and go, well, it wasn't quite as bad as this when he was in charge. Because, you know, look, mate, it's the worst fun club in the country. It really is. It's got every advantage. It really, really should be, if not the champions every year, you know, because no one's going to be that. But it should be in contention. I mean, Alex Ferguson, when you look at Alex Ferguson, once he got into the Premier, once the Premier League was formed, Manchester United were never out of the top three at the end of the season. They never finished lower than third. That is where Manchester United should be. That's not some false... I mean, it was brilliant on the part of Alex, but it's not some false representation of what Manchester United are. That is exactly what that size of a club and that money should get you if it is run in any way sensibly.
Yeah, so
if it's run astutely, Manchester United should never fail to qualify for the Champions League. They're like Bayern Munich or Real Madrid. They should never fail to qualify. Now that it's 4 in or 5 in, how the hell are Manchester United ever out of the Champions League?
So this one for you with Ruben Amorim and the situation now has firmly put the spotlight on Ineos, Jim Ratcliffe, Jason Wilcox, rather than managerial issues or anything like that.
And of course the fellas in America who have done, depending on which way you look at it,
the Glazer family,
either a genius job because they've managed to go, oh, this turn, you know, we'll just take the money and you can just take all the blame. Or they're doing the same job that they've always done, which is not quite the job that you would have wished for.
Yeah,
I'd say it's genius.
In many ways, it's the most remarkable sleight of hand.
That's where we've got to with Manchester United. The Glazers are geniuses.
But it's the most remarkable sleight of hand, isn't it? It's like, oh yeah. But yeah. So and that's nothing against Ollie. He seems a perfectly reasonable bloke, but I was seeing Gary Neville last night, and he's saying, well, Ollie really cares about the club, and you think, well, yeah, but you can get someone off the Stretford end who really cares about the club. That's not the point about caring about the club, for God's sake. And all it does is wind you back into those years, the glory years, and all of that stuff that they've got to find a way forward from.
Yeah, we're dangerously close to mentioning DNA already on this episode of the Game Podcast. Let's bring in our Ole Gunnar Solskjaer fan club president from a couple of years ago, Johnny Northcroft. Wow. I think that is only a fair way of introducing you, Johnny. When I saw these reports about Ole Gunnar coming back, I remember great, rifts between you and I over Ole Gunnar Solskjaer's position at Manchester United. Listen, he did well at times, but as Martin says, do you go back? Do you ever go back? Give us your thoughts on the United situation.
Let's remember the kind of articles of that fan club, which was that Ole Gunnar Solskjaer is probably, well, not probably, in my view, the best manager United have had since Fergie. I said that at the time.
Yep.
It's probably still the case, and it's it's a low bar, isn't it? It's not making a huge claim for any success that he had, because he didn't. But he was a figure who understood what the club was, DNA, I'll mention it, who did pretty simple things, but did Manchester United-ish things. Played with pace, played with wingers, tried to attack, tried to use the academy, kept it simple. Now, he ran his course, and the fact that they're going back or looking at going back to him or another type like Ole, as in a former player, just shows this has been a catastrophic failure of imagination from Ineos from the start, from the board, to back Ten Hag, to keep him despite wanting to sack him, to then stake everything on this big massive punt on an unproven, and I say unproven in the Premier League, young manager with football beliefs that didn't fit with the traditions of the club or the squad. We were here a couple of months ago when Jim Ratcliffe did the podcast with Times Business, where he talked about journalists having knee-jerk reactions. Where he talked about backing Ruben Amorim the way that Arsenal backed Mikel Arteta over 6 years. Yeah. He specifically said, where I am with this is that let's judge Ruben after 3 years. And I think we all expressed a little bit of scepticism about how true those were. I mean, I'm sure he believed them when he said them, but how much he'd stick to them. And here we are. I mean, this has all come about because there's been no clear vision for what Manchester United should look like, despite Jim being a Man United fan, despite all the fanfare when they came in. They haven't established a vision for what it should look like properly on the pitch. They haven't recruited players according to that vision. They haven't recruited managers according to that vision. And they're looking now at getting in an old Fergie protege to remind everyone what Manchester United should be. They should know that themselves. Yeah. But it does say a lot about the club that in the 13 years or 13 seasons since Fergie left, they've already had 5 ex-Fergie players as interims. Yeah. They've done it 5 times. And they're now looking at a 6th person there. And this tells you everything about this club that's trapped between the past and not knowing where they need to be in the future.
It's Leeds United. It's Leeds United after the Revie era. If you look at how many Don Revie players Leeds United brought in at various times to try to recapture that essence of what Leeds were, and it didn't work, and it was not necessarily the fault of those guys at all. I mean, the stories, when Darren Fletcher took over, and the first thing he did was call Alex and ask his permission. Ask his permission for what? Yeah. What? Oh, can I manage Manchester United, Alex? Knock yourself out, son. I mean, what do I care? It's sort of, why is he asking? Why does he have to ask Alex Ferguson's permission? It's also, for want of a better phrase, small and provincial. And Manchester United, act like a small provincial club sometimes, when actually they're this global monster. But they're stuck in this all of our yesterdays. Yeah. And look, I brought Alex Ferguson up earlier in the conversation, but that was only to show what he made that club. He made them a club that routinely, even in what would be called a bad year, was top 3.
Champions League. Just very quickly on the subject of interims, because obviously they made this decision, having said, as Johnny quite rightly points out, that Ruben Amorim will get his 3-year contract and things like that. Increasingly, we see clubs liking to make managerial changes at the end of the season, clean breaks and things. So much has been made about all the managers who are potentially available in the summer. Do we at least think that they're right going down the route of an interim? As much as we're kind of making disparaging comments about going back to Ollie, back to club legends, Michael Carrick as well in there. Do we is the interim choice a good choice?
Yeah, but does every single potential interim have to be a former Manchester
No,
United
absolutely
player?
not.
No,
But
I'm
just
the
asking.
question. I'm not.
Yeah.
I mean, it's ludicrous. You don't know. Yeah, probably, because actually, if you look around and you say who are they going to hire, that's not an easy question to answer as a permanent replacement. I'm not sure actually how much easier it'll be in the summer.
Why so? What? Because no one will want this job? Surely people will still want this job.
Yeah, people will still want the job, but they've gone down so many of these avenues, like in terms of who they've hired since Fergie, like Jose Mourinho, Louis van Gaal, like Erik ten Hag was the upcoming kind of manager in Europe at Ajax. Amorim had a good reputation. We can trash it now, but he did have a good reputation, and he was looked at by a lot of Premier League clubs, including Liverpool. So they've kind of done all these things. I don't know what the next step is. People keep talking about Premier League experience. Thomas Tuchel's name's been mentioned because the World Cup will be over. Like, can they wait that long? Like, he's pretty feisty too. Like, I don't know what the answer is. I just know it's not Ole Solskjaer. It's not.
You don't think it is for the next 6 months?
I just think I think you'd be better going with Carrick even.
Yeah.
Just because he actually, anyone who follows the EFL, I bet will know that he actually crafted a really good team at Middlesbrough. Yeah. Like, there were a lot of kind of misfortune in terms you look at the underlying numbers and stuff, like over a consistent period. They play good football. I actually think he's got quite a bright future. Like, and as I said on what day are we on Monday's show, like I don't see. I could have seen before we didn't know about Solskjaer and stuff. Then I could have seen Fletcher getting to the end of the season for the same reason. Like, I don't know I honestly don't know if he would do a worse job or a better job than Solskjaer, but I bet there's not much in it.
Yeah, Johnny, you wanted to come in on the various points.
Greg, I actually agree with Gregor there. I would go for Carrick over Solskjaer, despite my former fan club membership. Just because I don't see Ole had a certain effect the first time around. Came in with that, vibes is what it was dismissed as. But vibes are important, right? Vibes are culture.
Absolutely, yep.
Vibes aren't lasting. That was the point with Solskjaer. I don't see him having the same effect second time round. And I echo Gregor's thoughts on Michael Carrick as a coach. I think he's very promising. So they'd be better going with that and with him and Fletcher until the end of the season. But the interim thing makes perfect sense in the state that they're in now. And by the way, Ineos love an interim. They did it 3 or 4 times with Nice. Because what's important is they have to get the next one right.
Oh God, Johnny, don't say that.
We've said that before, right? We've said that before, but they do, because every time they get it wrong, they slip further behind, don't they? It's one of the failings with Amorim was their desperation to get him mid-season, and I was never an Amorim fan. I think his football was awful, results were never good enough. But in fairness to him, he came into a really difficult situation.
That he didn't want to come into.
That he didn't want to come into. And if they'd waited on him and maybe start to build the squad for his needs, and he'd arrived for pre-season, it might have been different for him. It might. So they can't make that mistake again. There is no urgency in doing something now unless the right man's available.
I just think we're still actually, although it sounds bizarre when talking about the next Manchester United manager, we're largely overlooking the biggest problem, which is that still, 13 years on, Manchester United have never hired a properly elite level executive class at the football club. They've still not done it. They tried to do it and they effed it up. They hired Dan Ashworth, and then they realised he wasn't the guy that they want. It probably would have been better leaving Dan Ashworth to hire everyone else. He's a facilitator. He'd be the one who had the overarching vision. They trashed that vision, and now they have a guy who's totally unproven. As I said the other day, has 1 year on his CV at Southampton in the Championship, and he's the one making the next. Well, he's a big voice in the conversation, making the next choice. So, actually, instead of talking about who they should hire as the next manager, we need to talk about who they have deciding who to hire the next manager. That's Manchester United's biggest problem, and it has been for 13 years.
But their owner has to listen. Jim Ratcliffe has to listen to whoever he hires, because he ignored Dan Ashworth on his reservations about Ruben Amorim. He ignored Jason Wilcox in terms of reservations about Ruben Amorim. So whoever they get in, they have to listen to him. The other issue is an ownership or chief executive, because before them we had Ed Woodward who wanted to run everything. But the top tier of the club, whoever they hire in the middle tier, they don't listen to. They want to do it themselves.
No, and the other thing is where they keep going down this road of former players and all of this. The problem is that it's like when Mike Ashley made Alan Shearer the manager of Newcastle. That was a big deal to about 3 players in the Newcastle team who would have remembered what Alan Shearer was and what he represented in the northeast of England. If your left back's from Paraguay, Alan Shearer really isn't. It doesn't make any difference. You need someone who's going to coach, who's not just going to talk about DNA and this is what it means, and this. And you look at Manchester United now. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, fantastic. What does Ole Gunnar Solskjaer actually mean to Patrick Dorgu, for instance? What does that mean to, and expand that to any number of Manchester United players? He's a name in the record book.
Also, what it means to Bruno Fernandes, who was one of the few players who was there at the last time. Harry Maguire would be like, all right, Ollie, nice to see you again.
Yeah, exactly.
Nice to see you.
You're not getting the new player bounce there, really, are you?
No. Just very quickly on, because we're talking about interims and things, and saying interim's probably the right way to go. It would be Carrick. Does anyone have like a name for the summer that they think this would be a good fit? Assuming they get European, say Carrick or Solskjaer comes in, bit of vibes, bit of Man United DNA. We're going to attack. We're going to score 4 if you score 3, and they finish 5th, 6th, get into Europe. Who's your man in the summer? Anyone got a name?
Yeah, go on.
Go on, Johnny.
Yeah. Well, they won't do it, but they should ask Unai Emery. They won't do it because he would want too much control and power. Yeah. But he's outside of Guardiola and Arteta. He's the outstanding manager of this era, who has worked at the biggest clubs, and I think he's an obvious choice. But they won't do it. So if you're looking younger, you're probably looking at an Iraola or a Hertzler. I'd look at Tuchel, but I don't know if he'd take that, given his experience of speaking to Manchester United the last time. Didn't go very well. Yeah. That's where I'd be looking.
Gregor, very easy shaking your head when your fellow Scott went brave and went first. He went first.
Going to say, I would not give it to any of them, but I don't know who I would give it to. So fair play, Johnny. At least you gave us some names. I think Unai Emery's communications would be a big issue when you're the manager of Manchester United. It was at Arsenal. It's not quite the same at Aston Villa. I just don't think he's the figurehead of a club of that stature. More so because of when it goes wrong.
It's easier to understand than Alex was sometimes.
Easy.
You put those Scots back in their place, Martin. Good lad. Well done.
There we go.
Kieran McKenna?
Like Glasner, Iraola, like you just have... They're great, but you just have reservations about when you're the team who's not the upstart.
Yeah.
What are they going to be like? Like if I was to go for either of them, it would probably be Glasner. But still, that would be a punt. They're all punts. Like, there's no one I can see. I can't see who.
Martin, anyone? Any of the big names that are out there?
Any of the big names, you'd go with... I've always been a very big admirer of Thomas Tuchel. And I think Thomas Tuchel would be an excellent Manchester United manager. And now, there is a confrontational side to him, without a shadow of a doubt. But maybe that's what Manchester United need. Maybe they need someone to challenge it, someone to shake it up, someone to make decisions that aren't necessarily conventional. The problem with Tuchel is you've got to give the man a couple of weeks off at least after the World Cup
before taking on the biggest job in Europe.
Exactly, and you've got to presume that England are right there until the very last day of it.
Yeah.
So.
And he might fancy sticking around, apparently, as we learned a few
never
months
know,
ago.
But, you'd look at that and go, right, okay, so when could he take over? The 1st of August. So you've got to do all your business. You've got to set everything up without him there. Then he comes. It's the timings are not ideal. The timings are not ideal at all.
It'd not be good for England either.
So, no. I mean, look, it's...
What, knowing he was off to Man United?
Yeah.
Well, remember when that happened with Spain and Lopetegui?
Yeah, true.
But if you're above board, I mean, look, if they wanted security, give him to you know, they had the chance to give him a 4-year contract. If they wanted security, give him a 4-year contract. They didn't give him a 4-year contract. They gave him a contract until summer 2026. So they can't really. There's no disloyalty involved in that. There's no disloyalty at all.
We think he's probably finished with football management, but Gareth Southgate, anyone? Man United? Vibes?
I think he is finished with football management. Actually.
Yeah.
Eddie Howe. I think Eddie Howe has done a good job.
Had a good run at Newcastle. A few little tensions going on. Fancy a crack somewhere else.
Yeah, of course there could be.
Johnny?
Yeah. No, I think what the United have to accept as well is a place in the scheme of things at the moment.
Yeah.
So when they're looking at the new manager, they've also got to look at how long is it going to take us, and how do we get there to challenging for a title again. And it seems to me that one of the fallacies of Amorim was that they thought, well, this guy's just got such a personality that it's a magic bullet. There isn't a magic bullet. So I think they've got to look at a manager who's going to take them to the Champions League first of all, and then get in the Champions League regularly, reinvest that money, and look at being challengers in 5 years' time. But nobody wants to hear that because United fans have been waiting for so long.
Yeah.
They want it now. But if you look at Klopp at Liverpool, you look at Arteta's job at Arsenal, it's a 5-year thing to take a club from where United are now.
Absolutely. Loads of challenges ahead for Ineos and Manchester United. United fans, do get in touch with me, as you often do, tom.clark@thetimes.co.uk. Tell me who you want as the next manager, whether it's interim or permanent, and we can discuss it on Monday's show. As I say, United getting a 2-2 draw with Burnley. Darren Fletcher switching to a back four. Turns out it maybe wasn't just the back three that was the issue. After all, it's looking a little bit short in this game. I thought 2 important goals for Benjamin Sesko and a brilliant goal from Jadon Anthony for Burnley. Well worth their point. Let's move on and talk about another team that have made a managerial change. Chelsea. Liam Rosenior, as I said earlier, in the stands to watch a defeat at Fulham. I'm going to get this in very early because it'll definitely be forgotten. Fulham, absolutely excellent in this game. I thought really, really brilliant. Harry Wilson is in the form of his life at the moment, playing really, really brilliantly after that difficult start to the season when some of us were going... Annoying podcast hosts were asking questions about whether they were in relegation trouble. Turns out Marco Silva is actually quite a good manager. Maybe he should get the Man United job. But Martin, on Chelsea and Rosenior, he'll be watching this. It all went well for Callum McFarlane at Manchester City. Great point and everything like that. And then Mark Cucurella's early red card, a 5th red card for a Chelsea player this season, of course. Always messes with your game plan. But perhaps this was a sign of the slight chaos that can always encapsulate Chelsea at times, and what Rosenior's, he's got a big job on his hands, hasn't he?
He has, yeah. Which is why I should have been on the touchline, not in the stand.
Yeah.
I've always thought, you take over. You're going to take over. Take over. I don't know what you're watching that you couldn't have watched from the touchline and then tried to influence. If you're a man with a 6.5-year contract, I really don't like that sort of stuff. I really think that a manager, you get the job, you go in there. All this, I'm going to watch it. I'm going to watch it from up there, and then I'm going to make my first match against Charlton Athletic. Oh, well done. Get the Fulham away. Get the Fulham away.
He knew how good Fulham were, what form they were in. He was like...
Yeah, but mate, the same thing, Ruud van Nistelrooy, who didn't watch Leicester's first, who didn't take Leicester's first match of his tenure against Brentford away, but was very happy to take charge for West Ham at home. I really don't like that sort of stuff. I really don't like it. And he's sitting next to the co-owner, who I don't know if he'd convinced, sit next to me, mate. The fans love me, but it turns out they don't. I mean, look, they've gone from being the world champions to what are they at the moment? The second best team in West London, or is it the third best team in West London at the moment? It's not good. It's really not good. It's not a way to. It's not a way to run a football club. I was not as convinced by Maresca as some, but at the same time, in the end, he's got the bullet. It seems like, for thinking that because he won a couple of trophies, they might start listening to him.
Yeah,
and again, it's another one of those clubs. 5 sporting directors. Okay. Let's hear from the sporting directors.
Absolutely,
I made that a part of, I think it was the piece on Manchester United. I've written so many about managers getting sacked this week that I can't remember which one's which.
It's only Thursday.
But it's only Thursday, you never know. But you never hear from these directors of football. And they've got such immense power.
Especially when Jason Wilcox is going in and telling Ruben Amorim to play a back four as well, which we believe is where the ruction started in the first place.
And you just look at the Chelsea situation. Well, one of those guys come forward.
Yeah.
One of those guys come forward and just explain what this philosophy is.
Yeah.
Because none of us looking at it can really quite see it. And I was prepared to give... Last year, in the end, you give them benefit of the doubt because they'd worked out, or I'm giving them the credit for working out, that they had the longest season in English football history to deal with. The longest, actually, not one with a COVID break in the middle, a proper 11-month season. And so having this big squad that we all looked at and went, well, this is insanity, this is all unwieldy. It actually ended up quite the smart move in the end because it allowed them to cope with it. In the same way, I can understand why Maresca kept making changes this season because he's dealing with the fallout from that.
Yeah.
But it cannot just be that everything gets thrown up in the air every time there's a transfer window, certainly a summer transfer window.
Yep.
The cards fall where they may, and then 3 months later we're saying, oh, yeah, well, everyone keeps getting sent off because it's a very young team. You go, well, whose fault is that?
Yeah. Johnny, some of your thoughts there to some of the points Martin's made. He's obviously bringing in sporting directors again, very culpable in all of this. We've seen the end of the manager, aren't we?
Well, yeah, I mean, but again, this also goes beyond sporting directors to... If we're seeing a reduction in the manager's power, which I think is what we are, I think that's the phase the game is in, and it's not just a phase, that's where we're going. It's not necessarily the sporting directors that are taking over, it's ownerships. So yeah, Chelsea have got 5 sporting directors, but one effect of having 5 sporting directors is it dilutes each one of them's importance and power, doesn't it? And this is run, the fans are protesting specifically about Blueco because they know how Chelsea's being run. This is an ownership model. They should be coming out and telling us what it is. I think we can, Martin's described it very well. I think we can piece it together. It's buying lots of players, specifically buying lots of young players, and trying to grow those players in terms of value. I mean, it's a trading model. And it's quite a clever trading model. But is it a winning Premier League's model? And Maresca, having won a Club World Cup, thought that perhaps he might be able to sign a couple of more senior players and the kind of players he might need to start to properly challenge Arsenal and Chelsea, and that didn't fit with the vision. It struck me that Liam Rossignol in his introductory video specifically talked about the age of the Strasbourg team that he'd managed. And says in that video, Strasbourg, we had an average age was 20.8, youngest in Europe. He's saying what the owners want to hear. Yeah. The owners want this. And as I say, it's great for developing those assets in terms of value, but is it a winning the league model?
Well, you come back to a point you made about Manchester United, Johnny, and the need for, at the very start, before you win the league, you need consistent Champions League football. Just a one-word answer from would Enzo Maresca have got Chelsea Champions League football if he'd still been in charge? Martin?
No.
Gregor?
I don't think so. Not the way it was going.
Maybe.
Johnny?
I think, I think he would have done.
Because the other thing, looking at it now, and we briefly mentioned it already, but Brentford into 5th, Newcastle in 3 wins on the spin, up to 6th. This mad season we're in. If this goes wrong for Chelsea in this season where anyone can beat anyone, and this group of teams behind the top 3, the top 2, they could end up finishing 7th, couldn't they? 8th, as they are at the minute. It's very fine margins, couldn't it?
The only reason I say no is that I'm looking at it and thinking, right, well, Arsenal are better than them, City are better than them, Villa are probably better than them.
Liverpool have kind of got their act together.
You look at Liverpool and think they're not going to be that bad all season. City are in have a blip, they're not going to be that bad all season. And I've always thought Chelsea would finish top 4, but recently you're looking at them and thinking, well, this is not really coming right. And I know Cole Palmer has got considerably better form to come into than he's showing since he's been back from injuries, been managed, yada yada yada. But there's still you still look at it and think, where's the 20 goal a season striker? You still look at it and think, as soon as they get 1 or 2 injuries, do I fancy that? The centre halves and stuff. And so you look at it and think they're vulnerable to those ones below, i.e., as you say, Brentford and Newcastle and teams like that, Fulham with their gander up or whatever. Any of those teams below could have Chelsea on their day.
Absolutely, yeah.
And that's a big problem.
Yeah, absolutely. Chelsea fans, get in touch with me, tom.clark@thetimes.co.uk. Tell me if you're worried about your team's chances for the rest of the season. Loads more still to come, talking about more managers under pressure and badly run clubs when it comes to Tottenham and West Ham. But it's time for a quick break. No time for a quiz. We'll be back in a sec. Welcome back to the Game Football Podcast from The Times and Sunday Times. Loads more to talk about in this second half of the show. Just some results from last night to whiz through Newcastle. What an absolute thriller at St James's Park. I was editing on the desk last night and we just had the goals flooding in. We had our work experience member Edie, who was just, her job was, I told her, shout out the scores as they come in. And she stayed all the way to the end just going, there's another goal! There's another goal! I can't believe it! Absolutely brilliant. Probably the best night of work experience any journalist has ever had on a national newspaper. I just wanted to read you Martin Hardy's excellent intro, which it sums up some of the news we were getting last night and this amazing game. He said, of course it finished 4-3. What else could it have been? It was a victory and a game of football for Kevin Keegan, whose cancer diagnosis was announced hours before this game. It was a night of spellbinding drama at St James's Park in his honour. It was 10:20 p.m. when Harvey Barnes somehow squeezed in that winning goal in the 12th minute of added time. St James's Park erupted. What joy suddenly filled the old stadium. Wonderful writing from the Times team as usual. I would say it was well timed at 1:01 minutes and 48 seconds. Harvey Barnes' winning goal for Newcastle is the latest ever winning goal in a Premier League match since Opta started recording them in 06-07. Moving on, Brentford-Sunderland, also a cracking game, also got loads of shouts in the office. Oh my God, he's done a Panenka and missed it. Can I just quickly ask, does anyone like a Panenka? Because I was thinking, even if you see one scored, I still go, you tosser. Even if, I don't know whether it's my lower league upbringing and I've never seen a Lincoln player score a Panenka, but honestly, even if they're scored, I'm like, you muppet, what did you do that for? You might have missed. Johnny, you're a big fan of a Panenka?
I like a Panenka. I've never tried one, by the way, but come on, there's nothing better than seeing a Panenka go in.
No,
especially if it hits the
bins,
bar
top bins. No, I'm still angry about
the
Zidane's.
most high pressure moments, like
don't
Pirlo's
like
against Joe Hart in the 2012 quarter-final.
That's the only one I'll
really
give
good.
you. That's the only one I'll give you. And he only gets away with it because he's Italian and he's got long hair.
Give us Panenka's one.
Yeah, he can have it as well.
Because that was, that was a bit special.
But
the
original,
one where the guy gets it named after him. There's not too much you do in football. You get it named after you.
But just very quickly,
no-
risk reward ratio. I'd say it's not. It's very fine line, isn't it, in terms of the potential reward versus the risk of looking like an
it's
absolute
one of those. You look
plum.
like a genius if it goes in, and you look like an absolute clown if it doesn't. I mean, it's as simple as that. But that in many ways is a metaphor for the entire sport. Because if you win the match, everyone goes, "Oh, this is very, very clever." If you listen to the commentary, a team can get absolutely battered, and then they go 1-0 up. And the first thing the summariser says is, well, this has been coming, or well, you've got to give them credit here. And you're thinking, mate, 5 minutes ago you said they were getting absolutely owned.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, speaking of teams that are kind of can look like they're battering teams, Brentford, Greg, are they keeping it going? Is this momentum? Is this just... can they keep going? It's Thiago, isn't it?
16 goals.
Amazing.
The most by a Brazilian. That's a great stat to have, isn't it?
Yeah.
And just like Brentford with their strikers, I don't know how they keep doing it. It's extraordinary. You'll think of the list after selling
sell people
and
and then they
Wissa
they
and
look
Tony
better.
and Watkins and Benrahma and Mope. Just keeps going. And they were all bought for all of them were less than 10 million and sold for, 40, 50, sometimes more. It's incredible. And after a year out as well. Basically a year out.
This guy was bought before they sold Tony, wasn't he?
Yeah, it's always a succession plan.
He predates Ivan Toney. So this is the guy they've bought 6 months before they know they're going to lose Ivan Toney. And then he gets injured, and then Ivan Toney gets suspended, banned or whatever. It's absolutely magnificent.
The biggest compliment you can give him too is every time he's through on goal. You think it's a goal.
Yeah, absolutely.
You've got supreme confidence in him scoring.
Fantastic season so far for Keith Andrews, Brentford and Thiago. Let's just talk about some of the VAR issues that came up, or some refereeing decisions in the midweek action. Unai Emery wasn't happy with the VAR in Villa's draw at Palace, but more importantly, perhaps, Everton, 2 red cards for them against Wolves, with the VAR interfering with Michael Keane for a hair tug. What would we call it? Gregor, Defenders Union, watching this, where are you at? Game's gone or part of the game now? It's a definite red card.
I mean, I don't know. I was reading the...
Do you need a break from this podcast? You know how it works, right? I ask a question and you generally try and give an opinion. Because so far today you've just got, I don't know.
There's so many.
Slagged off Johnny for picking a load of Man United managers and then couldn't pick one. Now I've asked you for
let me tell you my journey on this, right? I watched the highlights when I got into the office today, so I was reading the report on the tube in.
Yeah.
And I read David Moyes' quote saying, you have to be some player, I was a defender, to jump and manage to pull someone's hair while you're trying to win a header. And I was thinking, that sounds about right, yeah. And then I watched it and I think, well, that's what he did, David. He, maybe he is some player because he gave it a good yank. And then the next thing is it still deserving of a red card? I'm not sure. It's not like, is it, when he said you're sent off for violent conduct, was that violent conduct?
No.
Not for me.
Anyone else, Johnny?
Yeah, it seemed a very brief tug of the hair, but I mean, we can't pull people's hair, right? I mean, and we should go back and retrospectively punish Peter Crouch for pulling Brent Sancho's hair against Trinidad in the 2006 World Cup, which was shocking. But it's a look. I'm not even sure Michael Keane meant to do it.
No,
but although it looks comical. It's
what else is he trying to do?
We're not trying to grab hold of his shirt or something just for leverage.
I think
He's watching the ball.
That's why I thought he was
the kind of weight of his dreadlocks. Like it was a no-brainer, and it was there for a while.
Yeah,
I thought he was trying to grab something.
Yeah,
and not necessarily. But anyway, you can't pull.
if he was
you can't
going
pull someone
back
hair.
inside, that's what you'd do, wouldn't you? You'd go boom, boom, like that's that, and then you'd tape it.
Right.
Yeah, you can look.
Next,
he had to go.
Next
question.
question.
My point is,
He's got a point at last,
Romero.
everyone. Thank God.
It's Romero on Cucurella, if we remember that
Yeah.
one.
Yeah,
that's
that's
like a
it.
full fist of
Absolutely.
his big, like,
But that was
fluffy Barnett.
that was violent
yank.
because
exactly.
this was
This
the
was
violent
not quite
issue.
the same.
He had to go.
Just go on,
Letter
John.
of the law.
Yeah. Just very quickly, anyone think players should be allowed a little bit of sarcastic applause at the end of the game? Jack Grealish. I mean, why is sarcastic applause worse than like a volley of abuse in a referee's face, effing and blinding and whatever, and you get told, go away, go away. Grealish is fouled. He gives the old sarcastic applause. Come on. Let him have that, surely. Anyone? Gregor, Mr. Letter of the Law. Johnny?
I think
That's the one I disagreed with because, I mean, it wasn't even in the referee's face, was it? It was sometimes that's
been a lot in the referee's
applause.
face, though. I think it was becoming a really hard
Too
night
much
for
of it.
him, so it was kind of taking the piss. Yeah, I think
I
it's
don't
okay.
think
He's
he
off.
needed to.
Gregor's, honestly, I'm Mr. Football League, Mr. Hardman Scotland. He's been in North London
He's a
far too
referee
long. Yeah, he is a referee now, Johnny. You're right. He's done all these courses. He's mates with these referees.
Yeah, exactly.
Anyway, there we go.
I could talk to you about referees in this midweek if you want. Let's get on to
No, we've got far too much to talk about because we need to talk about West Ham and Tottenham. Let's get
there
back
we
to
go,
some of
there's
those
some of that.
big. Exactly. It's almost like I know what I'm doing. I'm linking it in. You see, VAR decision. You see where I'm going with this. West Ham losing against Nottingham Forest in a big bottom of the table clash. Martin, I'm going to come to you very shortly on West Ham and the state of the club in general. But Gregor, you were there for this match, and when we were discussing it briefly afterwards, you felt they were very unlucky, bit unlucky. Where's the barometer at?
Yeah, I said to Martin this morning, it's like, West Ham, given the way they're running, how they've got into this mess, are not, that easy a club to feel much sympathy for. But I felt sorry for them after this game because the two decisions were decisions that split opinion, you could say at least. And that sounds daft thing to say about an offside decision, but it's just a mad offside decision for several reasons, like the way that it wasn't really even a pass. It was like a half tackle, half dribble that Somerville was making as the ball broke wide to Castanelos, and Castanelos was moving backwards from an offside position and was like marginally offside, and then still a lot happened after that. He switched to play. Kyle Walker-Peters had a shot that was blocked. Somerville was there, chest control finish. Really, really hard for that to happen, and then obviously Forest went straight up and equalised. And then the penalty is a VAR penalty. It's a VAR era penalty. It's one that it's a coming together in real time that no one thinks. You think, that was but Souček headed the ball away. It didn't actually impact much. But now when you go to VAR and you look at it, it's a stonewall penalty. So I don't know. I felt sorry for them because they battled valiantly. They've been stinking in a lot of games in recent weeks, or they've kind of crumbled. They've not really shown much mettle. I thought they battled really hard in the second half, and they were unlucky to lose the game.
Martin, your thoughts on the situation at West Ham? As you mentioned earlier, you've written a lot of columns about the state of various football clubs and ownership models and things like that. But partly linking in some of Gregor's points there, they've been in terrible form lately. Showed a lot of spirit and a lot of bad luck in this game, do you think? But generally, where are West Ham at the moment? Are they staring down the face of relegation?
Ages ago that West Ham were relegated. The most interesting thing here is how is a tackle not playing the ball? Not having the ball under control. You've done exactly, we were talking about this earlier, you've done exactly what you intended to do. The very fact that you don't know where the ball is going to go, you don't know where the ball's going to go when you have a shot. Yep. But you can't say that you haven't got the ball under control when you shoot a goal. The very fact that you might slice it and it's the corner flag, that's that you're doing exactly what you intend to do. A tackle does what you intend to do. I've got the penalty. I can see. Look, I can see that. This I can see from the offside point of view. But I think we have so lost sight of what the original laws of the game are meant to be about. If you're talking about, you can make a tackle, and if it goes straight to the opposition, it doesn't count. That's an accident. What, you tackle someone by accident? You know, because you don't tackle anyone by. No one gets tackled by accident. You're running with the ball, someone tackles you. It's not an accident.
The whole process of determining when a new phase of play does or doesn't start is really murky, and it's quite important. Yeah, it really is. And also, the thing we were talking about this morning, you're almost, there's so much of these decisions now where you're almost having to look into the future. Like, you know, he's right. He made the tackle. If it goes to, a teammate, then they've got possession. That's his intention, really. It didn't happen. And, when you tie all that in with the fact that the player's moving backwards and a lot happened afterwards, it just didn't feel right. No one in the stadium thought, oh yeah, there could be an offside here. No one.
Are we at the point now where VAR is like a separate entity in a match in itself? You have the on-field officials and then you have the VAR, and they're supposed to be linked and helping each other. But actually they're two completely separate entities now, where the referee refs the match one way and then gets a word in his ear.
They tell you things you never knew.
Which is the complete wrong way of doing it, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We have lost sight of what the rules of the game, how they were written and what they were meant to do. And it's a point I've made a number of times. Everyone's bored with it. When the rules of the game were written, there was no way of judging if you were a toenail offside, or if your shoulder was offside, or if a tiny part of your body was offside. The whole point was, offside was meant to be something that the linesman or the referee and everybody in the crowd could see with their naked eye. You could just go, oh right, yeah, he's in front of him.
It gained an unfair advantage.
And gaining an unfair advantage. And what we've got now is this tiniest margin that is no attempt to gain an unfair advantage. It is no actual unfair advantage because, if your big toe is in front of the other guy, it doesn't necessarily mean you win the ball. And I don't understand it. And it's not just because it's West Ham, because I've got no problem. Because coming back to your point about West Ham, the reason bad teams seem to get bad luck is that they're never far enough in front. That the bad luck doesn't affect them. Do you know what I mean? If West Ham were 3-0 up against Nottingham Forest, the goalkeeper can punch who he likes on the hooter, and it really doesn't matter because, it's a penalty and it goes to 3-1. Yeah. But if you are a bad football team, you are never so far in front that one little reversal of fortune can't mess you up. And that's what happens to West Ham all the time. And also they play like giants against Wolves.
Johnny, just coming in on West Ham in general, if you've got any views on VAR, please do add them. But on West Ham generally, Martin said they're going down and said it for a while on this show and in various columns on the Times website. Your thoughts on the state of the club? They're in real trouble if they get relegated, aren't they?
Yeah, 100%. And I think we've been talking about changing managers and it maybe not affecting the bigger picture. I think that's entirely West Ham. They are where they are because of years of bad leadership by that board, terrible recruitment. They've just done it again. They've signed a couple of strikers to try and get themselves out of trouble. You look at their records, Tati, I've written his name down, Castellanos. Castellanos. Yeah. Two goals this season for Lazio before signing. Pablo,
Tatty Bye would be more appropriate.
Tatty Bye. Pablo, one goal every 5 games in Portuguese football, where Victor Gyökeres could score 2 goals every game. This is where the club are. It's recruitment after recruitment. Nuno's he's drowning there, but look at his defence. We talked about this before, didn't we? Look at the midfield. They've got Jared Bowen, but look at what else they've got, and I think they're doomed now.
Interesting. West Ham fans, if you've got any views on any of the points the guys have made, do get in touch with me. As always, tom.clark@thetimes.co.uk. The final club with managerial issues and chaos and boardroom problems, Tottenham, defeated at Bournemouth 3-2 last night. Lots of Tottenham fans, some that I know, some that work in the office, lots of ones that listeners as well getting in touch, seem to have turned against Thomas Frank now. We've got Christian Romero coming out overnight, appearing to criticise the Tottenham board in a late night social media post. He wrote, "Apologies to all fans who follow us everywhere, who are always there and will continue to be. We are responsible, there's no doubt about that. I am the first, but we will keep facing up and trying to turn the situation around. At times like this, it should be other people coming out to speak, but they don't. As has been happening for several years now, they only show up when things are going well to tell lies." Romero later appeared to edit this Instagram post to remove the reference to those lies. But we saw it, Christian. We saw it
But
first.
he did pledge to continue getting sent off.
Yes, that is, I would say, a big issue for him.
And leading the club in his own inimitable way.
Where do we think? Does Thomas Frank, is he Tottenham manager at the end of the season? Anyone think?
God. I hope so. That's the only way I can answer that.
Why do you hope so?
Because it's the same kind of conversation, although not to there's quite the same extremes as we've had about other clubs here. Is it's not all on him.
No.
There are things that he could do that would have changed the narrative a bit. I think I read somewhere that they're averaging 10.2 shots a game, which is their lowest on record since 1997-98.
Yeah.
Their attacking is really clunky's been kind. But in this game, actually, they had some good chances. They had
they did
16
okay.
efforts on goal. It was a bit of a bonkers game, and it was won at the end by a great strike by Antoine Semenyo. But ultimately, 14th after 12 matches. The way that the whole kind of conversation is now developed about can he kind of move away from being a set pieces sort of effective football manager to one that can play some more exciting goal scoring attacking football. He needs to answer those.
We've got Van der Ven rowing with the fans at the end of the game. Thomas Frank is holding a press conference today at 2:00, so by the time you're listening to it, he'll already have had his say on his status at the club and some of the reaction to Bournemouth. But Johnny, thoughts on the Thomas Frank situation at Tottenham? The fans have turned against him. It's always hard to get that back, isn't it?
Yeah, such an unhappy club. I fear for him. I rated him. I do rate him, but he hasn't worked for him. Hasn't done a particularly good job. But again, it's another club where you look beyond the manager, and this decline set in after 10 games of Ange, after his brilliant start. Tottenham are basically, there was 18 months of this before Thomas Frank arrived, and he just hasn't been able to move the dial. But will he survive? I doubt he'll be the manager at the end of the season.
Yeah, I can see that. I mean, column I wrote in the week, I think one of the problems he's got is there's a new board, and they seem to want to be liked. That's really dangerous because there's a very easy way to be liked if the manager's unpopular.
Yeah.
Particularly if the impression you've given is that you're going to be throwing off the shackles of the Levy year, and we're going to do this and we're going to do that. And all you've actually done so far is sell one of your players to Crystal Palace and then get an injury in exactly the position that he would have covered for. Now, no one's clairvoyant. You can't see that Kudus is going to get injured.
Yeah.
But it is a great irony that...
He was also their top scorer last season as well, I think, Brendan
absolutely,
Johnson.
Brendan Johnson. So he would have come straight into where Kudus plays. And they've sold him. And they haven't got anyone in yet. And the fans aren't happy. And the board would like to be liked. Do I have to draw pictures? Because there's a very easy win for the board.
Yeah.
And it doesn't involve Thomas Frank.
Do we think this is a similar scenario though with Manchester
future.
United, as we outlined, of where once you lose Thomas Frank, where do you go from Thomas Frank? Tottenham have this history of flip-flopping back and forth between kind of pragmatic coaches who then get criticised by fans for not stylistically being right, to then the extreme the other way. Ange Postecoglou, it's great fun, but we don't, it's chaos and it doesn't work. Where do you go after Thomas Frank?
Maybe they'll go the interim route. Ryan Mason's available.
Yeah, actually, yeah, very true.
Or they could go back to that last Tottenham team that won the league. Is Cliff Jones still alive?
yeah, he's always on the pitch at the stadium, isn't he?
Yeah.
Look, it's
Go on, Johnny.
It's like United. Come out as an ownership or executives. Tell us what's the objective here. What do they think?
More wins more often, John. Can you remember that?
Is that what it is?
More wins more often. It's been 9 in 25 so far.
Okay,
more
that's
wins
a start,
more often.
isn't it?
Yeah.
That'd be a start. No, but what do they think they are? Are they Champions League club? Is it about winning? I mean, it doesn't seem to be because of what happened with Ange. Is it about style of play? You kind of never know with Spurs, and this actually predates the Lewis family taking more control. It was kind of like this under Daniel Levy. Never quite sure, beyond turning a profit, what the objective was.
Yeah.
In fairness, if the one piece of credit you can give to Chelsea is they know what they want from their head coach. And they make the
Shut up.
they know the parameters.
Don't say anything.
They know
Shut
they tell them the parameters.
Shut
and
up.
They
and
say this
listen.
is your
Yeah,
job.
That's what they want.
And they've hired appropriately accordingly, and they're falling down their pecking order a bit. They've someone that they've kind of nurtured a bit, but that's the only bit of credit I'll give them. But we're talking about all these clubs and who they're going to go for, like what's their identity. It's not it can't be that easy.
Yeah.
It can't be that easy. We don't know what the answer is.
Yeah, Tottenham fans, we always love hearing from you. You do get in touch with me. Martin, you wanted to, Greg has mentioned it already, a brilliant finish from Antoine Semenyo to kind of cap his time at Bournemouth before he completes his move to Manchester City. We were discussing this before the show. It's remarkable, isn't it, to have this transfer lined up, played every game over the festive period and finishes with a 95th minute winner.
Absolutely. They've picked him for every single game. He's turned up. He hasn't shielded. He hasn't said, "Oh, my head isn't right," and
I might get injured.
Like that. I might get injured. I mean, credit to Bournemouth for taking the risk as well, because that could put the transfer down the tubes. But credit to Manchester City as well, because they haven't got in his ear and said, you need to tell him you've got a migraine or something like that, and get up to us and sign. Yeah. Now, or if they have, he's turned around and said, "Well, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to play for Bournemouth until I'm your player."
Yeah.
I think it was fantastic, and I was delighted for him that you go out like that, because if ever a guy deserves to go out on a big finish, it's Semenyo.
And then get a brilliant move to Manchester City as well, who look like they need him after the last two games, slightly stuttering in front of goal with a 1-1 draw against Brighton, which was great news for Arsenal. And that's where we're going to finish the big game of the midweek. We're not even going to be able to talk about until Monday's show, Gregor. Arsenal-Liverpool tonight. Anyone got any predictions? Anyone think Arne Slot and Liverpool might show their credentials as champions and upset Arsenal? Or is it Arsenal's to win? Johnny?
I think this is the night Arsenal should seal it. I mean, there's always the question because we've seen this before. But I think Arsenal win that game. Liverpool's injury list added to the start they've had the season, added to their issues, should lay this one on, not on a plate, but Arsenal should win this one.
Martin?
Arsenal a better team than Liverpool.
Yeah. John, Gregor, you've struggled with giving some answers on this show. Do you want to get a big prediction now? Liverpool 3-0. Go on, why not?
No, I think Arsenal win, and I think it's been a pretty seismic week, really, when you consider that City have lost Guardiola, Diaz, Savinho as well, or less important. John Stones is sidelined. In this game, they played Kusanov and Max Lane, who they just recalled from Watford, the centre half. Doesn't augur well for them to really put up a big fight.
There you go, Arsenal fans. What could possibly go wrong if you're listening to this on your way to the Emirates tonight? We hope you enjoy the game. Maybe we've jinxed you. Who knows? We'll find out when we return. Johnny Northcroft, Gregor Robertson and Martin Samuel, thank you very much for joining me. As always, thank you too for listening. We'll be back on Monday. We'll see you then.